For staying with us tonight. 7 lives have been lost already in the Eastern Cape this summer, all in the name of wanting to be a real man. Every single year, young boys take to the bold yet dangerous step to manhood, and this is a traditional circumcision. It is an old tradition that's practiced across the country, but it has, of course, over the years been criticized for its deadly and often illegal practices. Authorities have openly condemned the illegal acts, but however, nothing seems to change. Tonight we ask, is it time to modernize initiation to save lives? We're joined by the Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Obed Babela, and Dr. Anam Nyembezi from the University of the Western Cape School of Public Health. Both of them are joining us from our Cape Town studios tonight. And in studio with me is Prince Manene Tabane from the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa. And he's, of course, right here in studio. Perhaps let me begin with you as Controlesa. At this point, are you at all open to the idea of having the circumcision, at least the traditional circumcision aspect of things, taken out of these initiation practices as a way of potentially saving lives?
In the first place, thank you very much for the opportunity given to me. I think let's correct it, we call it a traditional initiation. Not or circumcision. We call it traditional initiation. I don't really think that we need to take it out of that, because we have identified the challenges that are emanating from this cultural practice. It's an obvious thing that it is practiced by people who don't know. Some of them, they are just there to commercialize it for the sake of getting money. But also, I think there's an element of, if we go back to say, initially, this cultural practice, it has been under the authority of the traditional leaders. But then I think in the process, the traditional leadership, let alone we do have the other means to try and save this cultural practice, they are not given that much authority to them or assisted by the act that are being implemented by the government. Yes, we are aware that they want to save the lives of the boys, which is also our view that no culture should be allowed to kill people. Any culture should save, in fact, to promote the humanhood of our people. Now then, I think if they can be given more support as the traditional leaders. I would make an example why I'm saying this. One of the 7 boys that have just passed on in the Eastern Cape, the boy in the area of Dujua came from the Eastern, from Cape Town. But then the boy came with a paper that he is from a doctor to be checked, a pre-screening before he goes to the initiation school. But in that area, the traditional leader was not aware because he has just gone through there. That is why I'm saying some of the papers will then allow them to go to the initiation school without the approval of a traditional leadership in that area. However, would wish that whatever means that are being taken, it should be, the traditional leader should be central to that, because in the jurisdiction of a traditional leadership, the traditional leader should know everything that happens pertaining to any cultural practice in the area.
I'm going to bring in the Deputy Minister here. Ntate Babela, good evening. Thanks for your time. Certainly, when it comes to the intervention of government in what goes on at initiation schools, of course, even the support that you are offering has often not necessarily been as welcomed, perhaps, by traditional leaders, has it?
Well, thank you, Kathy, and the viewers of ENCA, and then to my fellow panelists. The issue of government coming in, it comes because there's loss of life. Naturally, we shouldn't be legislating on culture, because culture is based on norms and practices which are common within African communities. I mean, imagine the day we start even legislating lobola, it's just going to be out. But this one, because there are deaths that are occurring, we need to save lives as the Constitution dictates. The traditional leaders are still playing a significant role, and unfortunately, majority of them are no longer as active and alive in ensuring that the schools that are established in their own area, they are known, they are approved by them, and schools just mushrooms all over, and the traditional leaders will not be knowing, and yet it is their jurisdiction. So therefore, they have to take a bit of a blame until they go back and ensure that they marshal command and ensure, therefore, that communities do not establish these schools without the permission of the traditional leaders. It's only in the towns where, obviously, we don't have traditional leaders except representatives in certain towns and here and there, where then the mushrooming becomes a big issue, a problem. But also this mushrooming, it's hidden away in factories, in mine dams around Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni and so forth. And other people have been hijacked from their own communities, like in Orange Farm, and then taken far places where even the traditional leader in that area does not know, and some men will just be running a school in violation or in disregard of the traditional leaders. Hence the law that we are coming up with, which is going to be debated tomorrow in Parliament, is on schedule, is on an order paper, is then to begin to identify those problematic areas where we want to identify others as offensive, and that those who are involved in them ought to be charged, and then we can then use it as a deterrent for those who are trying to hijack culture that is so loved by our people.
All right, Minister. Let me bring in Dr. Nyembezi. From the research that you do into initiation schools and perhaps some of the fatalities that we've been seeing at those schools, is the problem, as our controlessa guest has put it, that perhaps they're not receiving the necessary support? And even if it were to be policed, what are those interventions that would need to be put in place to ensure that it reaches every corner of the country where these illegal initiations are taking place?
Thanks, Kathy, again for the invitation, and good evening to your viewers and the panel. Well, we as the researchers, what we have done, we did work with the traditional leaders. We were invited in 2016, in 2006 by the Eastern Cape House of Traditional Leaders to conduct an in-depth study to understand what are the real problems with regards to the traditional initiation and circumcision. And the findings of that were that we had to make sure that we develop policies that are informed by empirical research. And that's why the traditional health practices was then amended. In fact, there was a new act which was implemented in 2016, and in that act we can see that the role of the traditional leaders was then promoted because they were regarded as the main people that need to be able to see to it that these deaths and injuries don't occur. So as researchers, what we found is that using health promotion, we need to be able to capacitate communities, to strengthening the communities where these customs are practiced, to make sure that we create enabling environments so that community members can be able to voice out their opinions on how things should be done. And even currently now, we can see that there is a commitment by the Eastern Cape House of Traditional Leaders, the commitment by the Department of Health, Education. So there are stakeholders in the communities where they are taking part in making sure that these deaths are prevented.
All right. Mr. Mapele, let me bring you in here lastly. In terms of technology and really perhaps trying to innovate how we can use technology to help us with determining where exactly things are going wrong with these initiations, very briefly, what are some of the proposals that you're putting on the table?
Well, we want to acknowledge good success that has happened in Limpopo, hence it's receiving zero tolerance for the past few years. And we hope, therefore, that in Mpumalanga, Eastern Cape in particular, could also embrace modernization and the use of technology, because culture is not static. It had to be adaptive. And I think that discussion ought to happen with traditional leaders, because they are custodians of our culture, to say it is indeed important that we use new technology and we modernize for the sake of our lives without affecting the culture, which is preparing these boys to be men. Those obviously will not be able to be affecting it, because indeed it has to be the role of the traditional leaders and those who believe in the customs. But modernization definitely is the way to go.
All right. Do you agree with the minister, lastly? Are you open to changing? You know, culture, some would say, is always evolving, so it's never really static. Are you open to that?
First of all, it's just that it's unfortunate that I can't hear them clearly, both of them. But let me
I apologize for that.
Yes, let me take on. I wanted to say, look, it has been accepted recently that there are doctors who have gone through this cultural practice, that we are using them in the initiation schools. The purpose behind that is for the boys not to go to the hospitals, because hospitals are not meant for initiates. They are meant for sick people. Therefore, in that case, we allow doctors to go to the initiation school to prevent the boys from going to the hospital. Now, in that fashion, I think we have created a space for this technology they are talking about, because whatever that would be done for these boys in the hospital will be also done in the initiation school.
Is that as far as you're willing to go, as far as modernization of the use of technology is concerned? I mean, the minister, even though he didn't talk about it there, has also previously spoken about the possibility of using drones, to fly over the mountaintops just to see if there are initiation schools that are being held illegally. Are those things that you're open to?
Look, one of these areas, they become so vast, especially in the Eastern Cape, where these boys can go and hide these boys. We'll only get to know when these boys, they are in trouble, they are to be taken to hospital. Then in that case, but we are then saying, moreover, what they're trying to do to assist, they must give more powers to the traditional leaders. How do they give them the powers to the traditional leaders? Let's say in an area, the act that is in the Eastern Cape should go beyond it to say, even if you go to a hospital to get a medical certificate, that medical certificate should be taken to a traditional leader in that area, so that the traditional leader is aware of what is happening in his area, so that even if we blame some certain things, we'll be in a position to detect that a certain traditional leader in a certain area is not doing his work or her work, because there shouldn't be any initiation schools without the traditional leader and his community knowing exactly about that. So whatever form of modernization that is being done, taken upon to assist in addressing this challenge, should be sent out by a traditional leader in that area. He should be informed very well that these are the issues now that we are taking through. Yes.
All right, we're going to leave it there for tonight because we've run out of time, unfortunately. Thanks to my guests tonight, Deputy Minister of Kokta, Obed Bapela, University of the Western Cape's researcher, Dr. Anam Nyembezi, and Prince Manene Tabane from Contralesa. Well, to close off the show tonight, we're giving you a special treat. We have US singer-songwriter Anthony Hamilton live in studio.